The tinkling spray of crystal fragments still hung in the air, a cruel counterpoint to the sudden, suffocating silence that had fallen over the ballroom. My daughter, 9-year-old Chloe, was a crumpled heap on the antique Persian rug, her small shoulders shaking with sobs. Before my legs could carry me to her, the world seemed to congeal. A voice, sharp as shattered glass itself, sliced through the tableau, hurling an accusation that was as baseless as it was brutal. Then, a blur of motion, a hand, elegant and bejeweled, arced through the air, connecting with Chloe's cheek with a sickening thud that reverberated through the opulent room. The sound was stark, unforgiving, and a crimson welt blossomed instantly on her porcelain skin. My heart hammered against my ribs as she gasped, her tear-filled blue eyes finding mine in the stunned crowd. In that horrifying instant, I knew. This wasn't mere humiliation. This was a calculated strike, and the curtain was about to rise on a long-buried truth. My name is Vivian Holloway, and I am 38. My Saturdays usually began with the aroma of artisanal coffee from the French press and the contented hum of Chloe sketching fantastical creatures in the sunlit breakfast nook of our brownstone. But this particular Saturday was poisoned by an engraved invitation I couldn't, in good conscience, decline: my younger sister Genevieve's baby shower. 5 years. It had been 5 years since I'd willingly attended a family function, not since the acrimonious fallout of my divorce from Richard. It was during that maelstrom of pain that my mother, Eleonora, had publicly and unequivocally condemned me. Her words, delivered with icy precision, still echoed in the recesses of my mind. Vivian is unfit. She doesn't deserve primary custody of that child. They were barbs that had festered, and the prospect of facing her again, particularly in such a celebratory setting, churned my stomach into a knot of dread. Chloe, her blonde ponytail secured with a velvet ribbon, danced into the kitchen, clutching a small, silver-wrapped box. "Do you think Aunt Genevieve's baby will like this, Mama?" she asked, her voice bright with anticipation, holding up the delicate silver locket she'd painstakingly chosen. "They'll adore it, my love," I managed. A smile stretched thin across my lips. I knew Chloe's generous spirit was unlikely to be met with anything but Eleonora's customary disdain. As I adjusted the satin bow, my thoughts drifted to the countless occasions Eleonora had overlooked Chloe, her gaze sliding past my daughter as if she were invisible. Since Genevieve's pregnancy, Eleonora's maternal instincts had become ferociously, almost obsessively, focused on her younger daughter. Every conversation, every anecdote, revolved around Genevieve's well-being, her cravings, her nursery plans, while Chloe and I were relegated to the periphery, ghosts at our own family's feast. Today, however, was non-negotiable. I couldn't deny Chloe the joy of welcoming her new cousin, regardless of the personal cost. We left our home, Chloe's excited chatter a stark contrast to the tightening band of anxiety around my chest as I navigated the Boston traffic towards the St. Regis Grand Ballroom, the chosen venue for this lavish affair. With each passing mile, my pulse quickened. I tried to reassure myself that my fears were exaggerated, but a premonition, dark and heavy, settled upon me. A storm was gathering, its currents unseen, and I was sailing directly into its path. The St. Regis was the epitome of old-world luxury, soaring marble columns, Czechoslovakian crystal chandeliers dripping diamonds of light, and impeccably uniformed staff gliding silently across polished floors. As Chloe and I entered the ballroom, a symphony of white roses and expensive perfume enveloped us. Blush and gold drapery cascaded from the ceilings, and the words "Awaiting Baby Holloway" glittered in elegant script above a mahogany table already groaning under the weight of exquisitely wrapped gifts. Chloe squeezed my hand, her eyes wide with wonder at the sheer opulence. "It's like a fairy tale, Mama." "It is lovely," I conceded, my gaze sweeping the room until it landed on Eleonora. She stood near a towering floral arrangement, a vision in a dove-gray Chanel suit, her signature triple-strand pearls gleaming at her throat. The same cool, appraising expression she always wore was firmly in place. As if sensing my scrutiny, her head turned, and her eyes, the same shade of icy blue as Chloe's, met mine. Her expression hardened, a subtle tightening around her perfectly painted lips. I forced myself forward. "Come, Chloe, let's find a place for your beautiful gift." Genevieve, radiant at 7 months pregnant, in a flowing lavender gown, spotted us and waved us over. "Vivian, you came," she exclaimed, offering a brief, fragrant hug before bending to embrace Chloe. "And you brought this precious girl." Chloe beamed. "I chose a special locket for the baby, Aunt Genevieve." Genevieve's smile was genuine, but the moment was fractured by Eleonora's swift approach. "Darling, don't overtire yourself," she admonished Genevieve, her eyes flicking dismissively towards Chloe, as if my daughter's very presence was an affront. I bit back a retort. "Chloe, why don't we place your gift on the table?" As Chloe carefully positioned the silver box amongst the pastel mountain, I observed Eleonora murmur something to a maitre d'. Her manicured fingers, adorned with several large rings, trembled almost imperceptibly. The maitre d' nodded curtly and vanished down a service corridor. A cold dread seeped into my bones. What new torment was she orchestrating? The guests, a curated collection of Genevieve's society friends, distant relatives, and prominent members of Eleonora's philanthropic circle, began to fill the room. Eleonora moved among them, a gracious smile fixed on her face, presenting Genevieve like a prized exhibit. Meanwhile, Chloe and I found refuge at a small, linen-draped table near the French doors, hoping to remain inconspicuous. Just as Chloe raised a glass of sparkling cider to her lips, Eleonora's voice, sharp and imperious, cut through the polite hum of conversation. "Chloe, don't just loiter about. You're obstructing the caterers." My daughter's smile faltered, and she hastily set down her glass. I reached across the table, my hand covering hers. "You're not in anyone's way, sweetie. Pay her no mind." Chloe nodded, but the light in her eyes had dimmed. No matter how I tried to shield her, Eleonora's barbs always found their mark. My gaze drifted back to my mother. Another uniformed staff member was now conferring with her in hushed tones. Eleonora nodded, then consulted her diamond-encrusted watch, her fingers tapping a nervous rhythm against its face. The air around her crackled with an unspoken tension. Whatever she was plotting, it felt imminent. As the shower progressed, guests mingled, their laughter and light conversation a deceptive veneer over the undercurrents I sensed. Waiters circulated with silver trays laden with canapés, and the gentle clinking of champagne flutes provided a soundtrack to my growing unease. My attention remained fixed on Eleonora, her movements quick and purposeful, her glances frequently darting towards Chloe. Chloe, blissfully unaware of my rising anxiety, twisted the end of her ponytail. "Mama, can I take Aunt Genevieve a glass of cider? She looks like she might be warm." My heart swelled at her innate kindness. "Of course, darling. Just be very careful." Chloe slid from her chair and navigated her way to the beverage station, her small hands gripping the crystal glass of sparkling cider with intense concentration. She took tentative steps towards Genevieve, her brow furrowed as she focused on not spilling a drop. And then it happened. From my vantage point, I saw a waiter, seemingly engrossed in adjusting a nearby floral arrangement, subtly extend his foot just as Chloe passed. Her small, patent leather shoe caught his heel. She stumbled, a tiny gasp escaping her lips as she fought for balance. The glass flew from her grasp, shattering on the Persian rug, cider splashing like a pale stain. Ice cubes skittered across the floor. "Look out," someone cried, a fraction too late. I was on my feet in an instant, but before I could bridge the distance, Eleonora's voice, shrill and laced with theatrical horror, pierced the sudden hush. "What were you trying to do?" she shrieked, her eyes blazing with a terrifying fury. "Did you put something in that drink?" Chloe's tear-filled eyes widened in bewildered terror. "No, I didn't." I promise. The slap was electrifying, a sharp, brutal crack that silenced every whisper, every clink of glass. Eleonora's hand, laden with rings, struck Chloe's cheek, leaving an angry red imprint that bloomed against her delicate skin. Chloe staggered back, a small, wounded animal, her hands flying to her face as tears streamed unchecked. "Mother!" "No!" I screamed, finally reaching Chloe and pulling her trembling body into my arms. "I didn't do anything, Mama," she sobbed into my shoulder, her voice muffled and broken. "I promise." "I know, my angel, I know," I murmured, smoothing her hair, my own tears threatening to spill. "You're safe now." The assembled guests erupted in a cacophony of shocked murmurs. Phones emerged, their lenses glinting. Eleonora's church acquaintances and distant cousins whispered behind manicured hands, their judgmental stares like daggers in my back. Genevieve, seated on a velvet chaise lounge, her hands protectively cradling her swollen abdomen, looked utterly aghast. Her husband, Marcus, was instantly by her side, offering a bottle of mineral water. But my focus was a laser beam on Eleonora, who stood, chest heaving, her hand still partially raised, as if poised to strike again. "Don't you dare touch my daughter again," I choked out, my voice trembling with a rage so profound it was almost paralyzing. "What is wrong with you?" Before Eleonora could retort, one of the waiters who had rushed forward bent down and retrieved something from beneath a nearby Louis XV side table, a cream-colored, embossed envelope, its edge darkened by a splash of cider. He examined it with a puzzled frown, then turned to me. "Excuse me, madam," he said, his voice respectful but firm. "This was under the table. It appears to have been dislodged by the, incident." My heart began to thrum a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I didn't know its contents, but an undeniable certainty settled in my gut. This was significant. And judging by the sudden, stark pallor that leached the color from Eleonora's face, her hands beginning to shake uncontrollably, she knew it too. The cream-colored envelope, held aloft by the waiter, became the focal point of the room. The murmurs intensified, a wave of avid curiosity rippling through the guests. I held Chloe tighter, her face buried in my neck. "Where did that come from?" Eleonora demanded, her voice strained, but still attempting to project authority. "Under the console table, madam," the waiter reiterated. "It's slightly damp, but it seems to be of some importance." I saw Eleonora's hand twitch, a aborted gesture as if she meant to snatch it away, but she visibly restrained herself, her eyes darting towards a distinguished, gray-haired man in a sharply tailored suit who had just materialized at the edge of the room. Mr. Henderson, the hotel's security director. His gaze was keen as he surveyed the scene. He exchanged a brief, almost imperceptible nod with the waiter, who then presented him with the envelope. "Let's see what we have here," Mr. Henderson said, his calm voice cutting through the rising tension as he carefully slit open the envelope. Inside were several folded sheets of high-quality stationery. It was the elegant, familiar calligraphy at the top of the first page that made me gasp. Eleonora's distinctive, looping script. Her face went ashen as Mr. Henderson unfolded the documents, his expression growing progressively grimmer as he scanned the contents. "This," he announced, his voice resonating with quiet authority in the now deathly silent ballroom, "appears to be a meticulously detailed set of instructions pertaining to today's event. There are notes on staff positioning, the anticipated movements of Miss Chloe Holloway, and specific directives to ensure a significant disturbance during the baby shower." The room exploded. Shocked gasps, outraged whispers. Genevieve pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes, wide and glistening with unshed tears, fixed on our mother. Marcus tightened his protective arm around her, murmuring reassurances. Eleonora's carefully constructed composure finally shattered. She lunged, a desperate, animalistic sound tearing from her throat, trying to seize the papers. Mr. Henderson, with surprising agility, moved them out of her reach. These documents constitute evidence, Mrs. Sterling. I strongly advise you to remain calm, he stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. A sheen of perspiration slicked Eleonora's brow. Her lips trembled. I was merely trying to protect my family, she stammered, her voice cracking. That child, she's always been a disruption. Just like her mother. Chloe's sobs intensified, and my own fury, a white-hot geyser, erupted. You believe traumatizing a 9-year-old girl is protecting your family? I shouted, my voice raw. You orchestrated this entire charade. You wanted Chloe to falter, to be humiliated, to discredit me in front of everyone. Eleonora shook her head, a wild, jerky movement, but the damning evidence was irrefutable. Her breathing became shallow and rapid. She staggered back, her hand fumbling for the back of a gilded chair for support. Mother, what is happening? Genevieve's voice, frail and trembling, cut through the chaos. Why would you do this? Because. Eleonora's voice fractured, tears finally spilling down her meticulously made-up face. Every time I look at Chloe, I see him. I see the same deceit, the same bitter disappointment I endured with her father. I couldn't allow. She broke off, her words choked by a paroxysm of sobs. Before anyone could react, Mr. Henderson spoke again, his voice cool and steady. Actually, Mrs. Sterling, there is additional evidence. He produced a sleek tablet from his jacket pocket, tapping its screen. The hotel's comprehensive CCTV system captured your meeting with 2 members of our banquet staff yesterday evening, outlining this scenario. The last vestiges of color drained from Eleonora's face. No, please, you misunderstand, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Oh, I believe we understand perfectly, Mr. Henderson said, his gaze unwavering. And I suspect the Boston Police Department will as well. No. Wait, Eleonora cried, stumbling towards the security director, but 2 uniformed hotel security officers, materializing as if from nowhere, gently but firmly blocked her path. The guests, now utterly enthralled by the unfolding drama, buzzed with frantic whispers, their earlier judgmental glances now directed squarely at Eleonora, burning into her like acid. Chloe clung to me, her small body a rigid knot of terror. Mr. Henderson calmly pocketed the tablet. I've already alerted the authorities, Ms. Holloway. Officers are en route. Genevieve, still on the chaise, let out a low moan, her hands clutching her belly more tightly. Marcus, his face a mask of concern, knelt beside her. Breathe, Jen, just breathe, he urged, his eyes flicking to me, pleading for assistance. I'll call for paramedics, I said, my fingers fumbling for my phone, my other hand stroking Chloe's hair. But even as I dialed 911, my attention was inexorably drawn to Eleonora. Her mask of aristocratic control had completely disintegrated. Her perfectly coiffed hair was askew, her expensive makeup was streaked with tears, and her eyes were wide with a primal terror. The distant wail of sirens grew steadily louder, an ominous countdown. I only wanted to protect this family, she shrieked, collapsing onto a nearby chair, her body racked with tremors. Don't you understand? That child is a constant reminder of everything that was stolen from me. Every time I see her face, I see him. The man who abandoned me, who left me in financial ruin and public disgrace. A pang of something akin to pity, quickly overshadowed by anger, shot through me. I held Chloe closer. She is a child, Mother. An innocent child. Whatever pain Father inflicted upon you has absolutely nothing to do with her. Eleonora let out a harsh, grating laugh, dabbing at her eyes with a trembling, lace-edged handkerchief. You have no comprehension of what it's like to have your entire existence dismantled, to be left with nothing but crushing debt and the whispers of your supposed friends. Actually, Mother, I said, my voice quiet but resonant, I do. Because you subjected me to the very same public humiliation and private torment after my divorce. Eleonora froze, her breath catching in her throat as my words landed. For the briefest of moments, a flicker of something unreadable, Regret? Understanding? Crossed her face. But it was extinguished as quickly as it appeared. It was too late. The grand double doors of the ballroom burst open, and 2 uniformed Boston police officers strode in, their presence commanding immediate silence. They conferred briefly with Mr. Henderson, who handed over the damning envelope and the tablet. Eleonora rose unsteadily to her feet, her hands clasped tightly before her as if in prayer. "Please," she implored, her voice a mere whisper, "don't do this." One of the officers, a woman with a kind but firm expression, placed a gentle hand on Eleonora's arm. "Ma'am, we'll need you to accompany us to the precinct for questioning." "No." Genevieve's voice, raw with a grief that tore at my own heart, rang out. Tears streamed down her face as she cradled her belly. "Mother, how could you? How could you do this to us?" To Chloe. Eleonora looked at her younger daughter, her lips trembling. "I only wanted to protect your baby. I thought if I could just remove the complication, you would have the perfect, untainted family." Genevieve shook her head, fresh tears spilling. "You didn't protect anyone, Mother. You've destroyed us." The officers began to gently guide Eleonora towards the exit. But before she crossed the threshold, Chloe's small, quavering voice stopped her. "Grandmere." Chloe's eyes, still swollen and tear-stained, lifted to meet Eleonora's. "I was always a little scared of you, but I didn't want to hate you. I thought we were family." A single tear traced a path down Eleonora's ravaged cheek. "We are family, Sherry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But I have made unforgivable mistakes." I stood there, watching her disappear through the doors, her once proud figure diminishing with each step. The immense weight of years of unspoken pain, of betrayal and simmering resentment, seemed to lift from my shoulders, leaving behind a vast, hollow ache. Genevieve let out a choked sob as the paramedics, who had arrived almost unnoticed amidst the chaos, began to check her vitals. "Vivian, I can't believe this," she whispered, her face pale. Marcus held her hand tightly, his gaze shifting to me. "The doctor said she needs to avoid stress," he said, his voice low and worried. "I know. We'll get through this. She's strong." Mr. Henderson approached us, his expression one of profound sympathy. "The BPD has all the evidence. If there's anything further the hotel can do for you or your family, please do not hesitate to ask." "Thank you," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, though a tempest of emotions roiled within me. As the police car carrying Eleonora pulled away from the St. Regis, I knew the path ahead would be arduous. But for Chloe's sake, for Genevieve's, and for my own, I had to believe that this cataclysm was, perhaps, the horrifying, necessary precursor to healing. 1 year later. The late afternoon sun of October cast long, mellow shadows across the manicured lawn of my home in Oakwood Hills. The scent of cinnamon and baked apples, my signature pie, drifted from the open kitchen window. Inside, Chloe's delighted laughter mingled with the gurgles of her baby cousin, Sophia, as they played on a soft rug in the family room. "Look, Sophie Bug," Chloe chirped, dangling a brightly colored plush giraffe just out of the baby's reach. Sophia squealed, her tiny fists waving excitedly. The sound was pure, unadulterated joy, a balm to any lingering wounds of the past. Genevieve sat beside me on the deep linen sofa, a serene smile gracing her lips, as she watched her daughter. "Chloe is a natural with her," she said softly. "So patient, so loving. She's blossomed this past year, Vivian." "She has," I agreed, my heart swelling with a fierce pride as I watched Chloe gently guide Sophia's hand to the toy. The faint scar on Chloe's cheek, once a stark reminder, had faded to a barely perceptible silver line. Her nightmares had ceased months ago, thanks in no small part to the wonderful art therapist we'd found. The change in her was nothing short of miraculous. "And how are you really?" Genevieve asked, her gaze full of warmth and genuine concern. I took a sip of my herbal tea. "Better than I've been in a decade," I admitted. It's been a long road, but I think we've finally found our equilibrium. Genevieve nodded, her eyes misting slightly. Mother still won't see any of us, will she? I sighed, setting my cup down on the reclaimed wood coffee table. No. She remains at the private care facility. The nurses say she spends her days writing in a journal, mostly. The bitterness, apparently, is a stubborn companion. Genevieve traced the rim of her own teacup. I wish it could have been different. As do I said quietly. But we cannot control her choices. General, we extended the olive branch multiple times. The refusal to grasp it is her burden to bear now, not ours. Chloe's joyous shriek broke the somber spell. She had scooped Sophia into her arms and was carefully twirling her in a slow circle, rewarded by the baby's ecstatic giggles. Look, Mama. Aunt Genevieve. Sophia loves to fly. I smiled. You're going to be the most wonderful godmother, Chloe Bell. Her eyes, so like Eleonora's yet filled with an untainted light, shone. She carefully set Sophia back on the rug and rushed to give me a fierce hug. Really, Mama? You mean it? Genevieve chuckled, joining our embrace. There's no one we'd rather have, sweet girl. You are kind, resilient, and full of grace. Everything Sophia will need in a guiding star. Chloe's eyes welled, but this time, they were tears of pure happiness. Thank you, she whispered, hugging us both tighter. The back door opened, and Marcus, Genevieve's husband, came in, holding a warmed bottle. Dinner is almost served, he announced with a warm smile that reached his eyes. Vivian, you absolutely must teach me the secret to that apple pie. I laughed. It's a closely guarded family recipe, Marcus, but for you, I might make an exception one day. He grinned and returned to the kitchen. Genevieve squeezed my hand. We're stronger for it, you know, she said, her voice firm with conviction. What happened last year, it nearly broke us. But it also cleared the path for us to rebuild on our own terms. I nodded, the truth of her words resonating deep within me. Eleonora's destructive actions had fractured the facade of our family, but they hadn't destroyed its core. We were forging something new, something authentic and resilient. Outside, the autumn leaves, a riot of crimson and gold, rustled in the gentle breeze. Chloe was once again engaged in making Sophia laugh, her bright spirit filling the room. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, a genuine, unclouded sense of hope settled in my heart. Genevieve's hand found mine again. We did it, Viv. We found our way back to the light. I smiled, watching my daughter, my niece, my sister, my true family. The chains of a toxic past had finally been broken. The future, uncertain as it always was, felt open and full of promise.